Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the online convergence phase of the ASEAN Civil Society Conference and ASEAN People's Forum 2025. Thank you for being here with us. Today's session forms under the theme of peace building, human security, and transitional justice. Society across ASEAN continues to grapple with the legacy of conflict, authoritarianism, and human rights violations. In Burma, Myanmar, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, and beyond, the pursuit of justice and reconciliation remains urgent. Each context is unique, but we share certain common challenges: entrenched impunity, shrinking civil space, and the need to address past violations in ways that restore dignity, advance accountability, and build sustainable peace. So our session aims to exchange experience and lessons on transitional and restorative justice, highlighting how communities are driving accountability, reconciliation, and gender justice, while also exploring opportunities for regional solidarity. I'm Hnin from Burma, Myanmar, and I will be the moderator of this session. Today, we are privileged to have four distinguished speakers with us who bring national perspective and comparative regional insights. I'd like to introduce to you all with our four distinguished speakers first. The first speaker is Ruby Kholifah from Indonesia. She is the country director of the Asian Muslim Action Network, AMAN, with a focus on the role of women in peace building and interfaith cooperation. Born and raised in Indonesia, she assists young Muslim scholars in researching Muslims' response to modernity and globalization. She is actively involved in writing articles on women's issues, minority rights, and the role of women in peace building, published in both online and offline media as well as journals. She has authored several books, including Contesting Discourse on Sexuality and Sexual Subjectivity Among Single Muslim Women in Pesantren, and co-authored The Future of Feminisms, Confronting Fundamentalism, Conflict, and Neoliberalism. She earned a master's degree in Health and Social Science at Mahidol University in Thailand. The next speaker is Agatha from Burma, Myanmar. She is a dedicated advocate for gender and women's rights, serving as a steering committee member for two women-led organizations in Burma, Myanmar, and she has been appointed as the head of the Department of Women and Children within the Interim Executive Council of the Karenni State. Her engagement spans various political arenas where she passionately advocates for women's issues and gender justice. The third speaker here with us is Mano, also from Burma, Myanmar. She is a practitioner in the gender, peace, security, and justice sector with a particular focus on the southeast region of the country. With over a decade of experience supporting institutional reform processes, she now works as a consultant on issues including feminism, restorative justice, and accountability. She is recently involved in the research on justice beyond punishment, rethinking justice during transition. Our final speaker is Victoria Tomasia from the Asia Justice and Rights AJAR in Timor-Leste. She is a youth human rights defender, passionate about promoting and advancing human rights in her country. As an alumna of the AJAR School of Human Rights, she has continued her journey by working on transitional justice, reconciliation, and youth engagement. At AJAR, Victoria is involved in initiatives such as youth exchange, workshops, and trainings that aim to amplify survivors' voices and foster multi-generational dialogue. She's committed to strengthening youth leadership and ensuring that justice and reconciliation remain central to Timor-Leste's democratic future. As one of the Timor-Leste protective youths, she has also been active in advancing social cohesion and peace building, ensuring that young people play a vital role in maintaining peace within their communities. So thank you again to all the speakers for sharing their valuable time with us today. We're gonna have 3 rounds of questions for our speakers. If time permits, we will also take questions from the participants. So you're welcome to drop your question in the Zoom chat during the discussion or raise them directly to the speaker after 3 rounds. So without further ado, I'd like to give a space to our speakers. First, I'd like to ask Ruby from Indonesia, because Indonesia's transition from authoritarianism brought important reforms, but challenges remain, especially from religious and ethnic minorities. So from your work and experience, my question to you is, how are grassroots women organizing to strengthen peace, challenge discrimination, advocate for justice, and promote inclusion in this evolving landscape? You have 5 minutes to respond, Ruby. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear my voice.
Yeah. Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, great. Yes. Okay, wow. Bring like a deep reflection on what we have been gone through after 1998. And now we, showing as one of the organizations that committed to strengthen a grassroots movement. I think in my reflection, I can, share a couple important strategy or that keeping the grassroots movement remain consistent and been able to deal with a lot of dynamics in terms of the politics in Indonesia. One thing that I think very common among civil society organizations, particularly the women groups, they having a critical or politics education for women. And that actually embodied in the community. Why it is important? Because that kind of education with the intensive and regular, how do you call it, class, able to actually install critical thinking among women. The critical thinking, that's the key to actually challenge the gender injustice. Because without critical thinking, women would not be able to see what is the suppression happen in their life and how they actually can move beyond the existing, that they are having. Other is actually we transforming the subjectivity of the women from maybe object to the full subject of their life. So in that context, I think the process of the regular education able to bring women into different level of the creation, which in my experience working with the AMAN on Sekolah Perempuan Perdamaian or the Women's School for Peace, actually able to provide pathway for the women to be able to enjoy a certain level of leadership, and that's very important in the context of the village. I'm talking about the village level where actually very often we don't have much leader, but I think the critical education that's actually drawn by civil society able to actually emerge a lot of leaders on the ground. And this is very important for how do you call it, strengthen the baseline of the movement, because the movement is not only in the level of meso, but you need to bring the movement actually really grounded. That's the all the women at the grassroots level able to actually how do you call it, compete in the good way. Number two is the networking nature. I think the networking nature in Indonesia is so much vibrant, and because of that, we treat network as part of our daily, work. I think almost all organizations, get engaged into networking. We build a lot of network, and recently we are able to actually organize formally the sketcher, a work that we have been done in the last 10 years in in the assisting the government to do implementation of the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security. And the Indonesia WPS network officially launched towards, number one, actually, we would like to really use the network as a source and stream of the women knowledge on peace and security, recognizing draws from diverse background of the women intersectional experiences. Can you imagine that, how plural we are? And we need to have a platform that's able actually to recognize each of the unique, experience of the women, and also the knowledge to be able to use in our work. Number two is with the network, the women from diverse background able to be, recognized better. If you are far away in Papua, for example, your voice may be very limited, but having the network, your voice is echoing, and your leadership actually grow with the network being recognized, by the public. And the other is, it is a strategy to actually expand what's so-called full and meaningful participation. If you see that the women leader coming from the very far away from the center, they need to have space. They need to ensure the public that what's happening on the ground dealing with climate crisis, trafficking, and maybe declining of our democracy, they still have a space, a secure space for them to testimony what's happening to their community, but at the same time, also allowing us to provide a strong support for them. With that, you will see that exercising of the leadership, that exactly happening inside, the network. The last one that I would like to highlight as part of the something that make us proud and shifting from authoritarianism culture, where not culture, the politic, where actually during New Order we did a lot of good work on gender and Islam, but it at that time it just like underground, because people scare of the the ruler. But when transformation happened, and it took several years until people joining together and then declare that yes, we need to reclaim the religious authority, because there are so much male religious leaders that always providing the religious opinion over women rights. And that is the time that's actually for Indonesia making a lot of changes right now since 2017, when many organizations, including religious leaders inside, who have been learning about the democracy, the women rights, and other important issue, that finally they are stand up and showing as the collective action called the Congress of Indonesia Women Ulama, and reclaim the religious interpretation by introducing new methodology, saying that it is important to centralize the women experiences and knowledge as the baseline of religious interpretation. And that actually ending beautifully in 2019, we are able to actually increase the marriage age from 16, 17 to 19 years old, and also able to push our parliament to actually passage the new law on the sexual violence crime. I should stop now. And that is, until now, we continuing working collaboratively and helping each other to strengthen the network.
Thank you, Ruby, for highlighting important efforts on your side: education, networking, full and meaningful participation, and gender and religion, which is a very key aspect in your line of work. Thank you so much. So I like to turn to the context of Burma, Myanmar. So my question this time, I want Agatha to respond. So women in diverse communities in Burma, Myanmar, they are deeply affected by the conflict and precarious situation in the country, but they also play a key role in the resistance. So could you share how they are impacted and how they are organizing and advocating for justice and inclusion within a broader resistance? Thank you.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Yeah, thanks for your questions. And as you already mentioned that the current crisis of Myanmar impacted different genders, especially women in particular, suffer lots of disruptions and other compounded risks. So I'm going to discuss two things, like how the current crisis impacts on their life. And the second thing is that we have actually, if we can discuss, it will be Wendy, it will be for Wendy discussion, right? How we organize things and, how we move forward. But I would like to highlight only the key aspects here. And the first one is like how the existing conflict affect differently to women in like the other gender diverse communities. So especially I would like to highlight from my experience. As we all know, I'm from Kholifah State, which is the one of the federal unit of Myanmar, Burma. So I will focus more on like my own experience and then how we have done so far. So yes, of course, as we all know, like women and other gender diverse communities suffer differently from that existing crisis. For example, we have been receiving every month we have receiving an average of gender-based violence and domestic violence cases that we can say that types of risk is increasing. So we have receiving an average of 3 to 5 cases every month. So this means that the conflict create exposures to gender-based violence, including conflict-related sexual violence, and so on. And the second one is those vulnerable communities and groups. They also suffer loss of a livelihood and education, health disruptions. Like for example, we have and also displacements. And for example, in our community, even though we are the smallest state, we are serving, accommodating 400,000 IDPs so far. Of this, we are also serving 3,000 Latvian mothers. So they are not receiving the proper reproductive health services and others as well. And also they are facing decline to employment opportunities and so on. So this is some example of facing disruptions due to the existing conflicts. And other compounded risks that which include I mentioned already that reproductive health risk, and also social stigma and lack of legal protections. Although we have a loss of increasing cases of violence of women and children, but so far there is we are facing legal protections and other safety and security concerns. So this is how the conflict situation, conflict impact in our lives. But despite the fact that we are facing a kind of disruptions by the conflict, we women, we never give up, and then we try to rebound. We try to build up our own agency. Our friends Ruby already mentioned that we are building our own subjectivity. as well as how we how we organize and how we advocate to include or to consider gender justice, to get gender justice in our environment. As we all know, we have the interim government bodies, such as that we call currently state consultative council, currently state interim executive council, and also currently state interim parliament and judiciary. So within those interim government bodies, we have a women platform, especially the state-based. We have a key for women-led organizations that they are creating a women platform, a kind of women task force, and then through that platform, they produce women political leader to engage with those interim government bodies. So we have some of the women representatives in the policy making bodies and also service deliveries and judiciary branches as well. So this is how we have tried to unify the women voices and women agencies. So far, what we have applying through that platform is that we can advocate at least the practice of at least 30% quota within the existing interim institutions. So this is, I feel like, the best way to ensure the women participation and meaningful participations of women in time of crisis. So this is one thing that we have organized things, and I feel like we can also produce that women political leader just like me. Before that, I'm trying to avoid, I'm trying to stay away from the politics and political arena. But in times of crisis, we can redefine our political agencies through this platform. This is one of the meaningful, collective efforts. So this is how we have tried in our situations. Yes, of course, we through that network, we can also bring and find the ways to bring gender justice, as our colleagues mentioned already. We're trying to bring the gender justice and also justice for all the vulnerable groups. Of course, I cannot say that we can bring 100%. We cannot make sure that we can bring 100% gender justice to our communities. But anyhow, we have tried our best, and then we trying to rebate our nations so far. This is some of the examples that we are working in these situations. Maybe we can have some more discussions later on. Thank you so much for your listening my experiences.
And thank you, Ma Agatha, for sharing some of the key aspect of how the conflict has been disproportionately affected, conflict has disproportionately affected women in your area. So what I'd like to highlight a few points from. So the increasing number of displacement with safety and security concern, and also no or very limited access to essential services like education and health, including sexual and reproductive health, so that this limited accessibility and availability harms a large number of women and girls in your area, and your different efforts to amplify the voices of women in your community. Thank you so much for that. Then I'd like to give a turn to Manu. So Manu highlighted how women are affected and advocating for justice. But in Burma, Myanmar, military repression and armed conflicts continue to deepen impunity. So from your experience, what are some of the key challenges community face in pursuing justice today, and how are they responding? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. If I can say, there are tons of challenges community face in pursuing justice today. But here, because of time limitation, I would like to discuss only 3 of them. One of the challenges, as you rightly pointed out, is the ongoing conflict and military repression. Escalating violence, atrocity crimes, it's ongoing. It's prevent communities to access justice. And then these harms not happen only one time, they happen repeatedly, repeat again and again, and then they leave community with deep wounds and lack of support. So while crimes are happening again and again, community often have no space or opportunity to think about justice. No, people end up focusing on immediate needs, such as like safety, food, shelter, rather than thinking or seeking about accountability or healing. Second one is the collapse of public services and institutions in most areas of Myanmar. Conflict because of continued communities often have nowhere to turn for legal support or basic services. There are emergent institutions, but many of them are not yet fully functional at the community level. In some ethnic administrative areas, local justice systems are actively responding to the community's justice needs, but they also have limited resources and capacity. Their ability to conduct outreach and provide consistent support is still remain constrained. And most importantly, there is a challenge in how justice is understood. You know, if we see justice is only seen as punishment, and then yes, we cannot do anything about criminal justice, legal justice. There is widespread impunity at this moment. But if we look beyond punishment, justice also means healing, restoring dignity, rebuilding relationship. But unfortunately, our collective understanding of justice hasn't reached at this level yet. For example, when justice mechanism is designed with community voices, there may be room for alternative approaches to accountability. You know, instead of criminal punishment, community can decide how people with lesser crimes take responsibility through reparative actions or restorative processes, though this may raise concern about impunity. So many of us still focusing solely on retribution. This is the limitation of potential or for deeper reconciliation and transformation. And regarding how communities are responding it, there are existing actions that are enabling access to justice. In the recent mini research that I involved, they have findings about communities together with civil society organizations are not only working for access to criminal justice, but also go beyond it. For example, communities are giving testimonies, telling about their experience, and civil societies are documenting abuses that community have experienced, and then preserving evidence for future accountability. Because like I said, we cannot do it right now. And another one is rather than, there are several initiated address immediate needs, such as community healings and resilience building. Some communities use storytelling, art drawing, playing to coping with trauma. Moreover, civil society organizations are also providing urgent humanitarian and protection needs, which are very essential for current survival and safety. And I would like to echo what Ruby and Agatha also mentioned about the GBV cases during conflict situation. It's very significant cases, no? But normally these cases are often overlooked compared to other atrocities. And land grabbing, lack of employment, lack of access to education, these cases, we should take these cases as justice cases. These are injustice to us. So most we see that women and gender diverse groups are consistently advocating about this. So even in conflict time, day-to-day justice, it should be prioritized. Cases like GBV, cases like land grabbing, cases like lack of employment, labor exploitation, these must be addressed, and supporting survivors, healing and restoring dignity. So the last thing that I would like to highlight on good practices doing by CSO. CSO have facilitated community-led dispute resolution mechanism in areas where no functioning justice system exists. So we can see that communities' actions are moving beyond punitive approaches and focusing on repairing relationship and restoring community cohesion, community life. At the same time, documentation and legal aid initiatives are promoting accountability and making sure that there is no impunity for atrocity crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mano. You bring a different perspective on justice, because people normally regard justice as punishment and retribution, but you bring a broader sense of justice where we want to have a healing, where we will have healing and resilience. And also you mentioned there are a lot of ongoing challenges, including conflict, escalating violence. So people do not have space to think about justice. They are struggling for the survivor. Thank you for highlighting that. So I like to go to Sister Victoria, because Timor-Leste has a unique history of formal truth and reconciliation processes. So from your experience and perspective, what lessons have emerged from community-based transitional justice in your context, particularly regarding victim support and long-term healing? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I hope everyone hears me clearly. Regarding transitional justice in Timor-Leste, I'd like to share some lessons from our experience. As we all know, that Timor-Leste has a very, very long history of conflict in the past. After more than 500 years of Portuguese colonization, Timor-Leste proclaimed its independence in November 1975, but only a month later, in December 1975, Indonesia invaded and occupied Timor-Leste during 24 years. And this long occupation was marked by gross human rights violations and deep suffering for Timorese people. And after gaining independence from Indonesia, after 24 years of Indonesian invasion in Timor-Leste, Timor-Leste set up the Commission for Reception, Truth and Reconciliation, most known as CAVR in Portuguese sigla, in 2001, which worked until 2005. And one important initiative was of this commission was the community reconciliation process, which most known as PRK at that time in Indonesian sigla, Proses Rekonsiliasi Komunitas. And it is actually a community level conflict resolution mechanism for a less serious crime around 1999, such as beatings, abductions, and minor offenses. And the process involved meetings between parties in conflict, which is facilitated by the Commission for Reception, Truth and Reconciliation, CAVR, and the Attorney General's Office to create a peace and stability after the conflict. And from this, throughout this process, the CAVR received a total of 1,600 registered cases from the community, and around 1,300 cases were facilitated through this community reconciliation process. And from the Commission for Reception, Truth and Reconciliation, the Shega report, a report named Shega, was later produced, containing findings and recommendations on human rights violations during the past conflicts. But however, some findings of this report were not well received by Indonesian government. So both government, Timor-Leste and Indonesia, then later agreed to create a commission on truth and friendship from 2005 to 2008 to investigate the 1999 violence and seek a conclusive truth. And after these two commissions ended, the mandate of these two commissions ended, the civil society organizations in Timor-Leste continued the work on reparations and reconciliation. And back in 2010, efforts to introduce reparations policy for victims were made, but unfortunately, these were blocked in parliament, in national parliament, which at that time was largely dominated by the veterans, who prioritized veterans' interests over reparations for victims. But then the advocacy continued, and by 2015, after remodeling in Timor-Leste, a new generation in government helped to set up a follow-up institution called CNC, Centro Nacional Shega, based on the Shega recommendations to ensure the implementation of Shega recommendations, including works on reparations and reconciliation. And from AJAR's experience, AJAR has been working closely with this institution, with CNC, especially in providing technical support to CNC, such as helping write and submit the reparations policy and creating history modules for high school teachers and university lecturers. In addition, there is also a reconciliation working group led by CNC for doing advocacy works regarding reconciliation. This advocacy work is more focusing on addressing internal conflicts in Timor-Leste, because this issue remains complex, as the government's leaders in Timor-Leste hold different views about reconciliation. For example, the current Prime Minister of Timor-Leste, Xanana Gusmão, has emphasized internal reconciliation. Meanwhile, the current president of Timor-Leste, José Ramos Horta, prioritized reconciliation with former Timorese militias in West Timor, Indonesia. And to respond to these different perspectives, the Reconciliation Working Group, which is led by CNC, is currently holding consultations in, they're already being in 3 municipalities across Timor-Leste to listen directly from communities and understand what form of reconciliation they prefer. And another thing to add is that recently, the political changes and the political unstable in Timor-Leste have influenced the reparations programs of the CNC, while certain projects for victims were discontinued. In last year, the government approved educational initiatives such as history and peace teaching model for schools, which is showing a commitment to learning from the past. However, some key reparations policies remain unimplemented and pending, reflecting the continuing obstacles in sustaining government support. So to conclude this, I think in terms of transitional justice mechanism, Timor-Leste has made progress in some areas, but however still faces ongoing challenges. Regarding reparations, for instance, as I mentioned earlier, efforts to provide reparations for victims has begun since 2010, but have faced many challenges. Victims, especially the women survivors of the past conflicts who experienced sexual violence, torture, and other serious human rights violations, continue to suffer after the independence. Many have not yet gained justice. And even after the independence, they faced a new form of human rights violations, which is impunity. And because the perpetrators remain free while victims live with social stigma, silence, and social discrimination. This ongoing reality shows us that reparations must go beyond policy. They need to be fully implemented and centered on the dignity and rights of victims. And currently, advocacy regarding this continue through the, I forgot to mention it early, apart from reconciliation working group, there is also a working group on reparation led by CNC. So beside the reconciliation group, there is also reparation working group that push forward reparations for victims. And recently, CNC submitted a proposal to the Council of Ministers for a national recognition letter to all women survivors, which is still under process. And in addition, work on a reparation law is also ongoing under the CNC led, and these efforts show that while progress is being made, much more needs to be done to ensure victims, particularly women survivors, receive the justice, recognitions, and support they deserve. Regarding accountability of perpetrators, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we still focus mainly on less serious crime from 1999, such as beatings, abductions, and other minor offenses. However, prosecution of more serious crimes stopped between 2001 to 2005. The main perpetrators and the main actors of gross human rights violations in past conflicts still remain free. The last point is regarding truth and institutional reform. I think Timor-Leste is quite progressive. Timor-Leste is relatively progressive in terms of policy. Like, the constitution is modern. Timor-Leste has also ratified several international conventions, but however, the implementation remains a big challenge, and many legal and institutional reforms are still in progress. I think that's all for now from my side. Maybe later we can discuss more.
Thank you, Sister Victoria, for highlighting Timor-Leste's endeavor to transitional justice and reconciliation, despite having multiple challenges and working with people with a diverse view of reconciliation and reparation. And it's a lot to learn for us. Honestly, thank you so much for sharing your insights and experience. And so let's move to the next round of questions. So this time I'd like to begin again with Ruby and Agatha, as the question applies to both of you. I want to know, in your context, highlights how gender justice intersect with broader struggles for human rights. So my question to you is how we can ensure that gender perspective remains central, not sidelined, in transitional justice and peace building work. So Ruby, maybe you could start us off, and then I will hear from Manu. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm interested to draw again the framework on women, peace, and security, which I do believe that all of us here have been applied in our context of working or advocacy. But if you see that the history of the women, peace, and security become, like installing inside the Security Council, the UN Security Council, you may see that how important gender equality. So it would be peace and security cannot be achieved without gender justice. That is the word that you have to always remember. But however, I think the women, peace, and security has been over and over, translated by so many actors that somehow we're losing the soul of the women, peace, and security. Let's say women, peace, and security. You will see like 3 words. The women means that is really dealing with the women's rights. So you can't talk about peace without talking about women's rights. And that is very important. And number 2 is peace, because peace is often, hijacked by masculine. That's, you will see there are so many male actually engaging in the process of peace, while you will see organically there are so many women in the history, and I do believe reflecting in your community, they are engaged very close with what's so-called reconciliation or conflict resolution. And security, that's the 3rd element that even much important for us to remember, that that security operation has the, how do you call it, has been like blindly used by particularly actors that instead of providing security, they actually raising the gender sexual violence. So with that, you will see that the composition of the women, peace and security framework within particularly placing one important, for me, strong soul inside the women, peace and security. If you see the general recommendation 30 on CEDAW, you will see that word, that the women is not single entities there, and we need to see it with intersectionalities perspective. Without that, you may not be able to really, counting how unique that each of experience of the women actually living in the different setting of politics, culture, social, and many more. And that actually the beauty of the framework to recognize each of the unique experience as the baseline for us to demand more women-friendly policy. So for me, I see the women, peace and security as part of the actually strengthening gender equality by number one, desecuritization. If you see that how conflict been so much securitized by particularly institution, that they're not using the human security lens. So the women, peace and security appear with a very strong recommendation that along the conflict, you will see like civilian, kill, and the operation, security operation, often not seeing this as part of, the way they have to be careful with the gun they are using and the tactic and whatsoever. So the desecuritization that women, peace and security apply in this to actually force all of us to really using human security, which actually not only just counting about how many people die, but actually more beyond that, how conflict affected to the life of the people. Number two, women, peace and security really offering demasculinization of the concept of peace. We're seeing that in many contexts in the world, even until now, I think 2024 report of the Secretary General of the UN seeing still under maybe 13% of the women actually engage in the conflict resolution. But the fact that if you see in the community, how actually women are so much, engaged in protecting the life of the people and protecting the community. If you go back to your own community, you will see that how women actually have characteristic and the qualification as the guardian of life, because they have a warmth, because the life is actually growing inside of the women body. So that is the reason why women have strong qualification of peace, because they have this thing. And number three, the women, peace and security is really offering us, and this is one of the reasons why the feminists all over the world are focusing women, peace and security inside the Security Council body, is because there are so many sexual gender-based violence, during the conflict. So that's the reason the feminists offering denormalization of sexual gender-based violence, because sexual gender-based violence is not something normal, even in the context of conflict, and then challenges to the ruler and also the international body to really be consistent on the implementation of transitional justice. I think AJAR has a quite nice example on how transitional justice ending with a comprehensive report. But again, there is still, space where government debating about whether that is need to be accepted or not is always in that context. But I think the existence of the specific mechanism, what so-called Truth and Reconciliation Commission, that's actually able to provide very clear who actually the victim and how government should protect and provide long-term and comprehensive recovery and rehabilitation. And the last one I would like to share here, that women, peace and security is really helping us to de-tokenism of the women participation. Why? Because women participation is still very low, right? Until now in the conflict resolution. And that's the reason why we need to open up the women participation room. And that's the reason why we need to, among civil society, strengthen each other, creating our alternative rooms and voicing a lot in order to be able to be captured and recognized by the official structure, and then they can provide us better. So desecuritization, demasculinization, denormalization, and de-tokenism, that is the spirit on how we need to challenge gender inequality in different layers of the structure we have in our society.
Thank you, Ruby, for highlighting that there is no peace and security without gender justice. You know, normally people are so people have different translation on gender, so the core meaning of women, peace, and security is lost, and it is heavily masculinized. And it is heartbreaking to hear that conflict and impunity fuel the incidence and prevalence of sexual and gender-based violence, which is so normalized in conflict setting. So we need to desecuritization, demasculinization, and denormalization. Thank you for highlighting that. So we heard from Ruby, and then I'd like to hear your response from Agatha. Could you please explain how we can ensure that gender perspective remains central, not sidelined in transition justice and peace building work in your context? Thank you.
Thank you again. Yeah, when we talk about like transitional justice, and to me, I would like to focus on like saying peace building, or maybe like a transitional justice. I have observed that most of the countries that they apply when it comes to transitional justice, we look at 4 windows, right? Truth seeking, accountability and justice, and reparations. And the last one is institutional reform. I wonder, especially in our context, like we are in the stage of like kind of fragile, and we are still in active war, and how we can apply these windows into our communities. So actually, I have no answer for this. But when I look at in my context, like we are actually in the process of like reforming our institutions. Like we are creating alternative government, and then we are creating like institutional buildings. So within this process, we are a part of this, especially we women are a part of this, creating, rebuilding the institutions and so on. But we still need to move forward. How our reparations and like accountability mechanism look like in the future. And one of the things that like, and for this transitional justice, who we are working for. So we have to look at the survivors, and also I don't want to say they are always survivors, but in this time of crisis, most of the survivors are women and other minorities, and you know, other gender diverse communities. They are solely the survivors of the conflict, and they suffer differently. So we have to listen their voices from the start, and then we need to look at what their needs, how they want to see the reparations mechanism, how they want to see accountability and justice mechanism. So we need to bring those experiences and different voices from communities. This is one thing that I would like to mention when we talk about transitional justice. And of course, as we all know, in our the country like us, we are suffering, like we are living in the fragile stage, and also we are living with the different ethnicities, and then we are living with different cultural and practices. So we are the society is a kind of conservative society. So we are facing also the traditional values and norms and so on. So most of the time when we talk about like changing the political arenas, building the new states, but we largely remain the experience and needs and concerns of those vulnerable groups that we are. I'm personally suffer, you know, when we are part of that political labor. Sometimes we are following the man leadership. The man leadership, you know, we are fulfilling what they want to see is their political leadership. So I feel like we are and intentionally or intentionally remain in the decision-making process. So in order to bring like a meaningful participations and also like representations and also like a comprehensive that kind of transitional justice and to ensure inclusion and also like a community-based reforming process, we gender justice should be the central key aspects of that transitional justice mechanisms. We should not be remain as a sideline. So this is one of the key aspects that I have observed from my experiences, so that we can increase, we can promote gender justice mechanism, and also like we can focus more on survivor center approach when we implementing that kind of transitional justice mechanisms. But this is we can say, you know, discussion is quite good, but when it comes to the implementations, it is we are still facing like some practical barriers that I have already mentioned, that we are having the institutional barriers, traditional norms, and other the man-centered leadership is that we are still facing on that. So we have to, I would like to repeat what our colleague Ruby mentioned, that we need to de-masculinize, you know, masculinize, you know, mechanism. And also when we talk about like a security, we need to revisit what we mentioned when we discuss about like security. We have to reinterpret, you know, based on the experience of women and other vulnerable groups in our counter. So this is what my second thoughts. I think maybe we can discuss more on, if we still have time, we can discuss more about how we can, you know, centralize gender justice into our, you know, future transitional justice mechanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Agatha, for highlighting that. So both of you mentioned like we need to demasculinize peace and security efforts, because we are so tackled with many barriers and challenges, especially rooted on patriarchal norms. Thank you so much for that. And also, women are not just single entity. We need to see peace and security initiatives from the intersectional perspective. Thank you for highlight. We heard from right now, we have from Ruby and Agatha, but looking beyond individual countries, individual contexts, I like to I like us to think about the regional perspective, how civil society and ASEAN can contribute to advancing justice and reconciliation. Again, this question is both for Sister Victoria and Mano, but I want to give the floor to Sister Victoria first. Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding this question, I think just a short answer. I would like to invite us all to take a look at the principle of the ASEAN Charter to see what has already been established and how we can reinforce those commitments in our actions. And based on the principles of the ASEAN Charter, regional civil society and the ASEAN itself have a very, very important role in supporting truth, accountability, and also reconciliation. And the ASEAN Charter is clearly emphasizes democracy, rule of law, and good governance, and respect for human rights, as well as promoting solidarity. So these principles create space for civil society to work with the governments to make sure victims' voices are heard and justice is meaningful. So regional civil society can share lessons and support local initiatives to that is focusing on survivors and communities. Like for instance, from Timor-Leste experience, it shows that reconciliation works best when it is community-driven and adapted to local culture. So civil society can also support cross-border dialogue. Youth engagement is really important, and also advocacy for reparations. And lastly, another thing to add is that civil society organizations have very important role, not only in educating communities, but also indirectly advocating with the governments. Because what I'm trying to say is that too often, most of the time, we civil society organizations, we conduct workshops and dialogues and many of activities only among us, without effectively targeting government participation. Because in reality, spaces on issues like corruption, human rights, good governance should be directed and involve the government's actors as the main audience. So what I'm trying to say is that civil society organizations, we cannot work alone, as well as the government cannot work alone. I mean, meaningful progress requires a great collaboration between the civil society organizations and the governments. And in short, by following the ASEAN Charter principles and working together among civil society, the governments, and also the ASEAN can also make sure truth, accountability, and reconciliations really happen in community. I think that's for me. That's for me for now. Maybe I can add more on the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mano, we'd like to hear your thoughts on this question. How civil society and ASEAN can contribute to advancing justice and reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is a really great question. Let me answer in two parts, civil society part and ASEAN as the power holder part. So, but for both parts, generally, they can and should play in supporting truth, accountability, and reconciliation. But how effectively they can play will depend on how genuinely they engage with people and respond to the realities on the ground. So I would like to start with regional civil societies. Actually, there are already good practices that could continue amplifying the voices of Myanmar and other survivor voices in the region, regionally and internationally. Capacity building for advocacy, legal support, criminal punishment, and documenting human rights violations. And in ASEAN, there are also other countries except Myanmar that have gone through accountability and reconciliation process, and their experience offer valuable lessons. So sharing this lesson can help guide contextualization in Myanmar for our country. But it's also important that the exchanges should go beyond like simply what was done, what had happened. It should also explore how and why certain approaches were chosen. This means that mostly because of the time limitation, or regional gathering or regional platform have time limitation. So we rush and we just put what we did, what happened, what. But then we didn't have time. We couldn't have time to explore the deeper. Okay, why? Like Victoria mentioned, why reparation and here community reconciliation process happen at the same time? We should have more spaces, more opportunity to talk about it, learn from each other, and exchange experiences. Moreover, it's also the learning should not base on a single project. Most of us, we work on external project or funding as a project period time frame. We must consider the entire process. So, okay, now we still have challenges, but then how we can overcome it? How we can make more people-centered, survivor-centered approach, something like that. So we should look the broader picture of different elements, how and they work together over time. And the second thing is when CSO organize exchange, learnings, and talking with authorities, power holder, we also could work with survivors or community members themselves, not just CSO staff or external experts. These individuals, they live permanently in the community and they carry lived experience of injustice. So by participating in exchanges, they can share their perspective, learn from each other, mobilize locally what kind of accountability and reconciliation they would like to see. So when survivors, community members lead the conversation, justice efforts become more grounded, relevant, and transformative. The last point for civil society here is coordination. So the coordination, yes, we mentioned about coordination, networking with authority. Here we also, civil society, sometimes we stay in our own sector. Here I would like to highlight the cross-sector coordination. It is very important because when we talk about conflicts, so the human rights CSO, civil society actor, cannot work only civil society, human rights CSO. Human rights CSO, women rights organization, humanitarian actors, and advocacy groups, this kind of cross-sectors organization could strengthen coordination. So they will work like a solidarity, not only as one-time event, but solidarity, and can drive the movement in our region. Because each of country, we still have challenges, not access to justice yet. There are lots of injustice happening. So we can drive in that movement. For the second part, it's about ASEAN. So yes, ASEAN, it's a little bit hard to talk about it, but ASEAN should go beyond its charter. It should look people. It should listen to people's voices. For example, with Myanmar, they stick to the 5-point consensus, but they should move beyond those 5-point consensus and listen to Myanmar people's voices. We can call it people-centered justice. So to make it people-led, survivor-centered, ASEAN must prioritize inclusivity and works with different stakeholders, not only G2G, not only G2G, but different civil society actors, in the Myanmar case with ethnics, governance at the revolution groups, and in the formal processes. Sometimes they work like informal. So no, what I meant is informal processes to strengthen inclusivity. And ASEAN can help Myanmar people access to justice. One side is upholding accountability on junta, and the other part is ensure immediate and long-term needs. And those needs should deliver through channels that directly support Myanmar people, not through junta channel. So upholding criminal accountability to those who cause harm and healing for those who suffer from HAM is very essential. Here, ASEAN leaders, ASEAN should avoid focusing on reconciliation without taking accountability. You know, sometimes they would like to start engagement, reconciliation, without talking about accountability. Because true reconciliation requires acknowledging harm, addressing the needs of survivors, and ensuring that those responsible are held to account. I would like to stop here for the moment. We can discuss later.
Thank you so much, Sister Victoria and Manoj. You both highlighted that the role of the civil society and also the role of the ASEAN. But genuine efforts should be grounded on the experience of the people on the ground, experience and voices of people on the ground. And it is best for reconciliation efforts to be community driven and adapted to the local culture. And also in terms of ASEAN, they should stick to the principles in the ASEAN Charter, as well as they need to hear the voices of the people who are suffering on the ground, who are, starving for access to justice. So, and also you highlighted the regional solidarity is really important to achieve such kind of initiatives. Thank you for that. So we are now at our last round of questions. I like to ask each of our speakers to keep their response to about 3 minutes. This time the question goes to all of you. My question to you is, looking at your experience, what are 1 or 2 key lessons that about sustaining peace and reconciliation efforts, even in the face of shrinking civil space and political setbacks? Sister Victoria, may I invite you to respond first? Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding this, I think one key lesson we have learned is that sustaining justice and reconciliation requires a long-term community-centered approach, even when political setbacks or shrinking civic space make the formal processes difficult. So what I'm trying to highlight is that transitional justice cannot end with commissions or reports. It must continue through everyday efforts that keep communities engaged and healing. So another important point is the role of youth, of young people and young activists. I believe that promoting and supporting the leadership skills of the new generation is very important, because they are powerful agents of change who can defend justice and advance reconciliation. And promoting knowledge as well as promoting knowledge of history among young people is really crucial, because as it helps them understand their country's past struggles and violations, and being aware of the past helps past history helps the young people, the young generation, act to prevent the same mistakes from happening again. And regarding this, as we can see this clearly across Asia today, across the whole country today, where young people have been at the forefront of many protests and movements demanding accountability and fairness. For instance, in Timor-Leste, a 3-day youth-led protest successfully challenged the parliamentary decision to buy expensive vehicles from members of parliament and remove the lifetime pensions for all the government's officials. And this action these actions initiated by the youth movements, the university students movements, ultimately achieved results and showed the enormous potentials of young people to defend justice. And from AJAR's experience, we are actively working with youth through programs such as the School of Human Rights, which is focusing on transitional justice and the national history. And also from this program, AJAR has previously conducted youth exchange between Timor-Leste youth and West Timor and youth from West Timor in Indonesia, who are actually the children of former pro-integration militias from the past conflicts. And these exchanges are an example of youth-led reconciliation, showing how young people can build bridges and promote healing across borders. And To conclude this, I think these efforts demonstrate that the young people are not just participants in discussions about the past injustice, but they are also the active defenders of justice for the present and for the future. That is why I think it is really important to support and promote the young people for sustaining reconciliation and accountability in Timor-Leste or beyond Timor-Leste. I think that's all from my side.
Thank you, Sister Victoria. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mano.
So during this time, shrinking civil space, political setbacks, it's very difficult, really, really difficult. But it is not impossible. No, based on my experience, I would like to share only one deep lesson learned with you. So it's similar to what Victoria already mentioned. Justice, reconciliation efforts, it should grounded in local people, local values, people's relationship. This will be more resilient, responsive. And without people voices, without people led it, it's not responsive. It can happen, it could happen, but may not be responsive. So my experience working with institutional reform, while policy change, law enacted is important, but I've seen the most powerful, lasting processes come from the people themselves. Institutions are busy with writing policy, writing charter, and holding repeated meetings with little outcomes. Communities, members, survivor voices are very clear. What we need, it is clear. In the mini research that I involve in survivors of human rights violation, they have said, we want a conclusion of injustice and harms that have defined our lives. They do not talk about to have protection from full authority or leader, or we would like the punishment, but we like those injustice and harm should stop once and for all. So these voices could inform decision makers, but it's not happen at the moment. It's not happen like this. So people-led justice mechanism can function even when state system collapse. With proper community oversight, this mechanism can be rapid, accessible. Survivor center, victim center initiatives often they can prioritize healing, truth-telling, restoring dignity. These elements are sometimes overlooked by institutions. What most institutions think are to drop the law for transition time, or what are the crimes, how we define crimes. And most importantly, for example, an organization or department or the truth-telling commission might document the truth one time, and they might consider work done. They will bring back their testimonies and put it as an evidence for future legal processes. But survivors, people, they would like to continue the conversation about their experience, about their pain, to revisit and part of their healing. Unfortunately, there are few spaces for this. And I've never seen telling truth as a healing practice. I've never seen those practices happening yet. So only community-led initiatives has the flexibility and trust among people to continue ongoing justice seeking and truth-telling. So to sum up, my biggest lesson learned is just focusing on community-led initiatives, empower community, give power to community to lead the process, to sustain justice, to put their efforts in reconciliations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mano. And I'd like to again give the floor to Sister Ruby.
Yeah, I want to close with a story. 2 years ago, we worked in one city called Lamongan to help the to help the community on the social reintegration. I think after we don't have a national conflict, but I think there are so many conflicts, happening at the subnational. And one of the new threats that people facing is the growing of the radicalization and violent extremism. And thousands of women and girls is actually also part of the migration to Syria, and then they came back, and that is the new arena for civil society to really ensure that the community able to handle the social reintegration, and particularly for those who are joining with the war of ISIS and they already punished. Well, here the case. So there is a family that's returned to the community, and community found that the process of returning this family is very silent, and that causing a lot of worry among society. So we are in a group, the AMAN and also the working group on women and PCVE gather and then introduce the approach called reflective structure dialogue, a dialogue that able to to bring community in a circle of dialogue to understand the fear with a newcomer in their community, but at the same time also draw the expectation if social reintegration happen in the community, how they can also take a role equally with others. So the process is a long process by gathering more than 100 people in the 12 circle of dialogue using reflective structure dialogue, a dialogue that actually able to secure space for women leaders to be able to mobilize the people, but at the same time also closely talking with the community. Of course, they need to be trained with that kind of a skill. But what I want to tell to you here is they are successfully doing that with the assistance of us. And then by the end of the reconciliation happen, all people that joining with the small circle, they join into big circle, and then there is the reconciliation happen between the former combatant of ISIS and the family, and also the villager. But what I want to highlight here, echoing others, see, under shrinking space, you will see still huge space within the community. So that is the huge room for you to do transformation. No matter how fear and how difficult and challenged that the community would see, but I think with the correct assistance from us and working closely with the community, and don't forget to centralize the role of the women leadership, that actually creating magic, miracle. That's we never think about it. The other peace building tool, of course, it is never been like how do you call it? It is not choose one from another, but to work in bringing community together, we have to have a different tools. And one is, of course, peace building is always, providing room for the women leadership, but at the same time, also changing people's mind and heart when peace building tool able to actually bringing people to their heart, that actually you will see like change happen dramatically. And the last one, I would like to highlight that with that process, we don't work alone. We work with the government, but which level of government that we work with the level of the community level, which we find there are so many people that having a good heart and positive, vibe to really changing the community because they are very close with the people. So if you don't find, the room at the national level, go to the very close to the people, and that actually securing yourself and the community, because that bonding between you and the community, that actually unbeatable when you want to have a change in the future.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I like to invite again to my Agatha for your insights. Thank you.
Yeah, for this discussions, to me, I would like to draw two lessons for myself and then my community maybe. Yeah, the first one is that the ASEAN levels, so far, across the ASEAN countries, that some of the countries may transform from like a authoritarian leadership to democratic leadership, but some countries fall back to authoritarian leadership. So how we can balance between the ASEAN community? And I haven't observed, to me, maybe this is my first time engaging with the ASEAN community, to be honest. And so I haven't observed on the ASEAN platforms for the, when it comes to the transitional justice and reconciliations, we have the assistant platform that we may have like a AJAR, and then we may have ACWC, but I'm not so sure how this operate for the ASEAN countries. And I haven't observed on the ASEAN platform for the transitional justice mechanism or framework. So maybe this may be due to the ASEAN centrality and then the principle of non-interference. So I think I wonder whether we can have a room for the future, to facilitate through this forum, whether we can facilitate to have a kind of like a ASEAN platform for transition justice and accountability mechanism for the future. And this is one thing. And the second lesson is that, as we all know, I'm from the marginalized community that we call Karenni community. And then I feel like Karenni women, they are trying at them, within their positions, they are trying their best, and then they are a part of transforming the institutions and rebuilding the state. But I feel like it is better if we have a kind of a room for us, to engage with the ASEAN communities. This is the starting point that I can say. And then I would like to see a more sisterhood bonding and then support from other ASEAN countries to continue our resilience and also our political agencies. And I would like to share with our political agencies to the ASEAN communities as well. So this is my two key lessons from this discussion voice. And I have seen that, here all the speakers are women. I have learned, especially from other countries like Indonesia and from our sisters, So you are already advanced, and then I still need to learn more from you, how you have, overcome from your hardship, So we are still in the process and in the meantime of, crisis, and then we are still, serving our people to overcome from their hardship, and at the same time we are also building our own community. So sometimes we become, hopeless, so I would like to get more strength from you all, so that whether we can build, a sisterhood bonding and regional support from this forum. And I'm looking forward to see more, support from ASEAN communities. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your wonderful insights. And the key important lesson you've learned is we need to focus on community-centered approach. We need to listen to the voice of people on the ground and realize that they are reflecting their experience amidst these kind of chaos and conflict and precarious situation. And also it is important to invest people in the community so that their voice will be amplified and they have a space to meaningfully participate in this process. And do not forget the important role of youths, because they are the key agents in these justice and reconciliation efforts. We cannot sideline their efforts and initiative. They play a key role in demanding accountability justice. As many youth across ASEAN region, they are at the forefront of many revolutions at the moment. And we are not alone. So we need to work together. We need to the important thing we need to have is to get correct assistance from each other by learning and sharing experience among each other and building solidarity. Thank you so much. So this is the end of our 3 rounds of questions. So I like to open the floor for the participants to ask if you have any question to our speaker. So if you want to ask question to a specific speaker, please mention so. And if you want to ask question, please raise your hand digitally on the signal on the Zoom platform so that we can direct our questions to the correct speaker. So I think we have one question in the chat box. The question is whether survivor-centered approaches can effectively deliver justice during this transitional period. Key considerations include identifying factors that demonstrate justice, ensuring accurate recognition of victims and perpetrators, and addressing wrongful accusation. For cases where mistakes remain and acknowledged, achieving meaningful justice and redress for those affected is a challenge. Do civil society organizations play a critical role in supporting fair judicial process, accountability, and restorative measures to address these harm? I like to ask a question to Brian. Do you want any specific speaker to respond, or anyone is okay? Anyone is okay. So our 4 speakers, so who would like to respond to this question? Do civil society organizations play a critical role in supporting fair judicial process, accountability, and restorative measure? Yeah, thank you so much for questioning. And how about Sister Victoria? Could you please address this? Can you? Sorry, I didn't see. I do not see Sister Victoria here. In that sense, sorry, Sister Ruby, or yeah,
Yeah,
Sister
I can share maybe a different how do you call it? Maybe different case, yeah. 2020, there was a village attacked by terrorist group, and remain the victim and survivor struggling with the stigmatization and also feeling guilty because of the burning the houses, which actually the cultural artifact storage in that house. 4 people killed, and there are many people that witnessing the process, the incident. They are still in traumatic. So we came to monitor what would happen with the humanitarian crisis response to this situation, and then we came up with a strong report on number 1, criticizing the the lacking of gender sensitive in responding the victim by, for example, portraying victim as the object of the assistant. When everyone come, that's victim again and again telling their story, and that should not be happen like that. And number two, we also found that the definition of a victim in that context is so diverse, and we have a layers of people being victim from the incident. And while the state definition of victim is too simple in comparison with the way how terrorism affect to people in different different how to get places where the situation happened. So after that, we realizing it, then the report doesn't make government move. So what we did is actually we did dialogue. We actually engage the victim and survivor. At the same time, also we engage the community that still have strong stigmatization toward the victim. And from that dialogue, we bring to the local government, including the victim, some of the victim who are still in the situation of traumatic, and telling the story in the very close room and with a safety manner, and saying that, look at all the intervention that humanitarian that you did is actually causing a difficult situation. And with the different agency joining in the series of meeting with the government at the district level, and then connecting with the national government, that actually able to shifting the way they responded. I think one that we are very happy to see the decision of the government to help the victim returning to their origin after they are moved to others and not providing good enough facility and others. But not only that, the community that used to bring stigmatization to the victim able to understand and bring their empathy in helping the victim. Do you know how far the civil society doing? A lot, because the imagination on what is reconciliation, what is the justice, what is the how to bring the community of voices, and how to reconcile at the bottom level of the community. I am so sorry to say that this is still in the imagination of civil society. But having open-minded government, that is helping a lot in actually recognizing your idea, but showing the path on how actually the government able to fulfill the justice that the victim demanding, and be with them and showing the path that this is the need of the community, this is the need that you need to do, and all of that without feeling like educate, but it's more like creating a space where everyone feel share responsibility, because our role as the national level and our partner role at the provincial or a district level are different, but the way we playing the role and fitting with our scope and ability to actually bring the cases into the solution, I think that's require a lot of humbleness, but at the same time also acceptance that we have limitation and we need other people, including the way we treat other government. We understand they have limitation, but we know that they want to be responsible. Let's put this as the the in the one plate where everyone got portion, and then we are happy seeing that the survivor able to continue their life. I hope this story can illustrate and how civil society work on that.
Thank you, Ruby, for responding the question. I think we have a question for Sister Victoria in the Zoom chat box. This is I will read the question for you. Timor has a lot of experience in seeking justice, and I think Sister Victoria is here with us, right? Oh, sorry. Timor has a lot of experience in seeking justice and recognition for survivors of atrocity that are committed by the Indonesian military. However, there are some much more sensitive issue like that of the Rena survivor, touching upon divisions within the Timorese society that are still difficult to address. I'm wondering what progress has been made there, because there might be important learnings for the future of similar process in the places like Myanmar. Thanks. So please, Sister Victoria.
I think regarding these questions, I think that is right. There are still several survivors, especially the renal survivors, who are still seeking justice and recognition for the survivors. And I think the progress, just like what I mentioned, the efforts on the reparations work has been made since a few years ago, since 2008. But one of the biggest obstacle has been the political will, which is halted the process and the progress. So that is why we civil society organizations here in Timor-Leste still work really hard in advocating and in working directly with the governments to ensure the progress of the reparations to all the survivors, nor women survivors or non renal survivors gain their proper rights to reparations. So what I would like to emphasize and highlight is the political will and the political changes in Timor-Leste has impacted the early proposals for victims reparations, which is especially from powerful veterans groups, which is also because the Timor-Leste is still strong in patriarchy culture, which is really contribute to the process to halt the process of reparations for the victims. Another challenge is sustainability. Even when the government support reparations, political changes after often interrupt programs, and civil, just like what I mentioned earlier, that civil society continues to advocate, but however, without consistent government commitment, reparations remain unfinished. I think that's all. Am I covering everything? If you have any more questions, we can discuss more later.
Okay, thank you, Sister Victoria. And Sister Ruby also dropped a message in the Zoom chat box too, because, the progress is still very disappointing. It's hard to say that, hard to hear that. Okay, I have questions from Agatha and Miss No, because the question is regarding the Myanmar's context from the live stream. Given the question is, here I quote, given the ongoing risks and shrinking civil space in Myanmar, how can the international community best support these important movements of people without putting local actors at greater risk? I'd like to give a floor to Agatha first and then to Mano. Thank you.
Thanks for the questions. We are also having the similar questions like you. We are also thinking and having a discussion with different actors and groups, and to safeguard the survivors without giving the secondary risks to the survivors. When we are helping them to get justice. So far, we still have a debate, and then looking for the platform to do on that. One of the things that we are neighboring countries, some of the cases that we cannot they cannot disclose if they are stay inside the countries. So we should have we should seek the testimonies. We don't know how we can move forward, but what we can do is that we can create referral, regional level referral mechanisms, whether the neighboring countries that they can safeguard our people, so that we can protect and safeguard the risk of the survivors. This is one of the things. And then we can start working without one of the things that what we can do is that we can start empower the survivors themselves, so that the survivor, they can find the ways, as we already discussed from other country experiences. So we can, the survivor themselves, they are not always a victims or a survivors. They are not always a victims. They are themselves is they have the capacity and they have the agencies to exercise their own, efforts. So that the only thing is that we should go with them, and then we can empower them to overcome from their hardship and so on. So this is the way that we can work on that. So I'm not so sure whether you get the answers or not, but this is, we are still having a debate to how to protect that civil space and also the survivors. Maybe we can find the answers once we finish our movement, and also when we finish, when we can stop the atrocities and everyday killings and airstrikes and so on. When we can stop that, maybe we can find a better solutions on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I like to give a floor to Manoj to respond to that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. And here the interesting part is about putting local actor at greater risk. Yes, the first thing is protection, safety, and most importantly is survival. We have to continue living to fight injustice. So there are lots of international communities can do. And some answers are similar to what civil society organization, Myanmar people are raising their voices. It's repeatedly. But here I would like to highlight something that's, for example, Manu already mentioned about safeguarding survivors and their testimonies. Here I would like to highlight to focus on responding to everyday harms as well. Like I said, when we talk about justice and when we talk about transition, accountability, people focus on what junta is doing and only, okay, in future, in transition time. But no, everyday harms also important. International communities, international actors, they can support addressing everyday harms, which sometimes are overlooked, no? And another one is to handle the everyday harms. Institutional reform is also important. At the same time, community involvement is also important. So mostly, if we talk from the funding donor side, mostly people think about, okay, community is okay, but institutional reform, people sometimes do not want to invest in. This is also important to invest. And rebalancing priorities and approaches is also very important, because some international actors, they would like to focus on one thing, criminal accountability mechanism, criminal justice, legal accountability. But here, the priorities and approaches, they have to choose community-led initiative, reparation actions, restorative processes. These are the things that international community can do. And if I speak in from the funding perspective, there should be flexibility, because when we talk about archiving testimonies like evidence center and survivor like emergency shelter, most of the time international those institution funding organization will say that no, we do not have, we will not support the infrastructure. But actually people need shelter, because everyday airstrike, everyday shelling, they need shelter, they need space to live and continue their life, they need counseling services, which also still need space, need building. You know, this kind of flexibility we still expect in international community to help us, can do it, can support, and most importantly is do not give legitimacy to junta military. You can advocate your own government about Myanmar, about ASEAN countries, though still looking for justice, not to work with human rights perpetrator, not to work with atrocity crimes perpetrator. And then those are the things that international community can support as well, most importantly. Thank you.
Thank you, all the speaker, and thank you, Ruby, for dropping your message on the Zoom chat. So because of the time constraint, I like to close our session. But before closing that, I would like to give my closing questions to all the speaker. Just in one sentence, each speaker, what message would you share with others in ASEAN to ensure that our collective future centers accountability, social justice, and meaningful participation for all? So I like to go with Ruby first.
Oh, okay. One sentence. Transformation starts with the women. When women empower, family change and community change, and the entire of the state will change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Sister Victoria, please.
I think I have, instead of message, I have a few recommendations here. I know I only have 1 minute, but I promise I'll wrap it up. Just a few recommendations for ASEAN and for the Timor-Leste government and Indonesian government. Just a very quick recommendation, like 4 or 5 recommendations here. The first recommendation is just like what Ms. No has mentioned earlier, it is for civil society and ASEAN. Civil society must work hard to advocate and push government to beyond the ASEAN Charter, especially the principle of non-interference in ASEAN. Because while civil society can do much, but the real power lies with the governments. I know the principle of non-interference is a core ASEAN foundation, but it is sometimes used as an excuse to remain silent on human rights violations and democratic backsliding, because real change can only happen if government show genuine political will, and civil society also must continue to push for this, especially on fundamental issues such as gross human rights violations and humanitarian crisis. The second recommendation is civil society, still for civil society, often produce research reports and petitions without follow-up, which can feel like just a project. And in the future, the petitions or reports should be directed to the government through ASEAN state members, with a group established to ensure proper follow-up. And the next recommendation is that ASEAN already has a space for civil society, but platform like Asian People Forum, APF must not work alone, because it must become an active and collaborative space within ASEAN's broader civil society framework. And the last 2 recommendations is for Timor-Leste government and for Indonesian government. from the Timor-Leste context, to avoid repeating the same mistakes of the past, it is really crucial that young people, especially in Timor-Leste and Indonesia, learn and understand the true narrative of history. In Indonesia, the younger generation has been taught a narrative of the past that is quite different from reality, and this is create gaps in understanding. Therefore, it is important for both government and civil society members from both countries to ensure that the true narrative of history is learned and passed on to the future generations. And the last, another important, one of the most important recommendation is that while both Timor-Leste and Indonesian government are currently very focused on reconciliation, it would be better to prioritize reparations for victims first, because healing the wounds of victims must come before reconciliation, because only then can reconciliation be meaningful and sustainable. I think that's all the recommendations. And one more minute, with Timor-Leste officially joining ASEAN this October, I really hope our country can actively participate and no longer remain isolated through ASEAN. We really hope that we must not only learn positive lessons, but also confront difficult realities like abuse of power, human rights violations, and weak governance. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Victoria. Mano, please.
Here, I would like to tell one sentence, 3 parts. We like home cooked food. We do not like ready-made food. So the supports that we may receive from international or regionally, we prefer more local-led, Myanmar people-led. And then even when we talk about people-led, we do not want to go transitional justice time. While we still focusing on everyday harm and addressing harm, we also will think about transition time, how the justice will look like, and then making sure that it is not only reparation, like punitive, but we will restore people's lives, people's dignity, and rebuilding relationship. That's what we need from all the support. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Agatha, please.
Yeah, only one sentence. So I'm hoping that in the future, the ASEAN community depends on, accountability, justice, and, reconciliation mechanisms. And then every voices, especially, women voices will be counted in the mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all the speakers, and for sharing your experience and insights, and all the participants for your questions and participation. Your engagement has made this discussion truly valuable. We hope it sparks a further dialogue and action toward justice, reconciliation, and peace in the region. So I'd like to close the session now. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. I hope you have a great day.